Hello folks, this is Clay with Clay's AC and Auto Repair and Clay Motion here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and this is the Clay Way. If this video ends up being helpful for you, please consider subscribing, clicking the notification, sharing my videos, liking my videos, giving me them big old thumbs up. And if you have a question, you can hit me up on Clay's AC and Auto Repair on Facebook, and I'll be happy to try to answer it. But at the very least, just turn that old volume down on your computer or your cell phone, whatever you're watching this on, when you find the part of the video you're looking for, and let my video play through. Okay, so today we're working on a Chevy Equinox. It's got a 3.4 in it. We're going to replace the thermostat in it. It's pretty simple. This information should be identical for the Pontiac Torrent and the Saturn Vue with the V6 3400 in it. Sometimes in the Saturns they put 3.6s, so watch out for that. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to move this clip back if you have this cover on your engine, and we're going to disconnect our EGR valve, and then we're going to take off our oil fill cap, and then we'll be able to raise up our engine cover. Sometimes you have to push them, clip these connectors forward to get them off. And these particular engines have like a neck that comes up and holds it down, so don't pull up on the cap, just keep turning in it, and then you'll feel it unlock and you can pull the whole neck out of there. Now we'll quite simply raise up on this and pull it off. But before we do that and remove the thermostat housing, we're going to want to drain the coolant out of it, or at least put a catch pan underneath it so the dogs or pets don't end up licking up the sweet tasting antifreeze. That housing is held on by two 13mm bolts. Probably just going to use a regular wrench to get them out, and they're easily seen. If the bolts seem tight to you, you can take one wrench, put another wrench on the top of it, and then that'll give you more leverage, and then you're able to turn it loose. The model that I'm working on, we do not have to remove the rear bolt because it's slotted back here, so you can just take your finger and feel it down there if you can't see it. And we take a look at our thermostat, and we can tell we definitely have a thermostat issue. With this vehicle, we pressurized the system. We found no leaks whatsoever, but the friend of mine was complaining about it overheating, so I took it out for a drive, and about 30 miles later, it overheated. It's definitely difficult to tell if a thermostat is bad by looking at it. Generally, if you pull it out and you can see air or light through this base of the right there, it's generally stuck open. But you won't generally have an overheating issue. If you have that, you'll have more of a heating issue. The engine won't get very hot. In this situation, how a thermostat works is inside this copper tube right here, there's a particular kind of wax that melts at a certain heating point. And they have like 3 different styles. Generally, you'll see like a 180 thermostat, a 195 thermostat, and a 210 degree thermostat. You can ask your parts store for whichever one you want to have. If your engine runs a little bit hot, then you want a lower temperature thermostat. If it runs a little bit where you're feeling a little bit cold during the winter, you want a higher operating thermostat. So we're going to go ahead and put that in. And it goes in just like this. You need to make sure that both surfaces are cleaned off. So we're going to do a little bit of cleaning to this one right here. We'll probably just take some sandpaper and clean that off. We'll also take a little bit of sandpaper and clean this edge off here as well. Even though the thermostat sits inside a groove down inside there, still better safe than sorry. We want a very good seal. Before we put this on, we can take a little bit of grease or dielectric or even oil and put it on the ring here, just so it adds a little bit of extra security for us not to have leaks. Making sure that our thermostat is fitting flush, just like mine, we take our finger and we run it on the outside edge just to make sure that the edge is consistent. There is probably a 1/16 of rubber sticking out, and I had to take my fingernails and just give it a little push as I put it in there, just to get it to fit in there properly. Okay, so I did end up removing this bolt entirely because the tip of my thermostat was too large to get it in between here and the exhaust, but maybe you'll be successful. We've got it in there. Now, if you have a pressure tester, you can check it for leaks. This is something really good and useful to have in your garage, and no, Lyle doesn't pay me to do this, but It's called a Lyle spill-free funnel, but it's so much more than that. When we stick this on the top of the coolant jug, it actually allows us to burp the air out of the system. With today's automobiles and having very complex heater systems, it's best to get all the air out of it. Then you don't have spikes in your cooling system while you're driving. If you've ever been driving your car and sometimes the heat goes up and then the heat comes down, that's because you're low on antifreeze. And more than likely you have air trapped inside your system. Okay, so with this connector, which goes past our overflow hose right here, and that's important that we want to block that off. We'll put that on there, then we'll screw our cap on, and then we'll be able to set our funnel right in the top of there, fill it with coolant, and go to town, start the engine up, and start burping the system. Now, before we start refilling the automobile with coolant, we're going to go ahead and take a 7mm and we're going to open up the screw top. Down here, I believe this is an 8 or a 10mm, but we only want to open up this. This is going to allow the air to escape as we fill it with coolant. We don't have to take it all the way out. We just need to open it up and make it loose. So now we'll start filling it with coolant, and when we see a steady stream of coolant coming out of there, it has pushed most of our air out of there. We can kind of hear it. Now that we've got a steady stream of coolant, we can go ahead and shut that off.
Oh, there we go. I think we're good. Go ahead and plug our EGR valve back in, and we can start the vehicle. We've only filled the coolant reservoir up to about a third of the way.
Now, while the engine is running, this is going to come back up a little bit, go back down, come back up and go back down. When the thermostat opens, and if you watch your temperature gauge, and usually about the halfway mark to maybe a 8 underneath the halfway mark, the thermostat should open and drop a bunch of coolant down. We've got to watch for this portion because when it drops down, it's going to take a lot of coolant out there with us. So we're going to want to have a half gallon to a gallon of coolant sitting, waiting, keeping this about a third of the way full. It is okay during the fill procedure if it bubbles like that. It's not a sign of a head gasket, but once the thermostat opens, if it keeps bubbling, you've got a head gasket issue. That means vapors are going up into your cooling system and causing air to get inside your cooling system. During this process, we can also open up our bleeder screw and make sure that we got most of the air out. Okay, so once we've made sure that our thermostat is opened and it's sucked enough coolant in there, we can take the T-bar, plug up the bucket, and put the coolant down in a jug. To ensure our vehicle has most of the air out of it like we think, we're going to go ahead and turn the heater all the way up on high and check the output of our vents. If it feels nice and hot like it's supposed to, then more than likely we got all the air out of the system. If you get a spiking, like your temperature's going too high or it's overheating or something like that, you want to make sure that you have enough coolant inside it. If you use the funnel system like me, you're going to want to evacuate some of this extra coolant out of here because we need to take the note on the side of the water bottle that says what the actual coolant level should be. So we can do that, or we can open that up and let enough of it come out to where it comes down to the level that it's supposed to be at. With our coolant evacuated out of there and back to the normal operating level to not have any vapor locking, we are good to go. So we're going to put it back together. Hopefully you guys found the video to be helpful, informative, probably not entertaining. And I don't show my face on my videos because I've got a face made for radio. God bless you guys. Remember, if anybody else can do it, you can do it too.